Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.
Howdy.
Hey.
How's it going?
Well, a little better. My allergies seem to be getting better, so.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, but I sent you that thing about my art.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I've done, so people know what I'm talking about. I've done at least 300, maybe it's 312. I don't know. Whatever.
Right.
300 pieces of art. When I started doing the art, the first thing was my book was going to be just writing, no art. I had no desire for art. I could do art, but that wasn't going to be anything part of the book. The book was 6,000 pages, so people can know. Well, I'm now going to add actually all this bullshit into the beginning part of the book. I'm going to call it The Evolution of Me, The Evolution of the Book, and then I'm going to explain the evolution of religion.
Okay,
because
yeah.
It's kind of interesting that also, so people like this stupid Christian bullshit, like, oh, you just decided you hated God, and so I want to explain my whole journey in a sense, so they know that, yeah, that's a bunch of bull crap.
Yep, for sure.
But just real quick, so everybody who knows what I'm talking about. The evolution of me was when I was a believer my whole life until 35. So I did not know an atheist, or I didn't know that I knew one, but no one ever told me about atheism that entire time. I stayed, like a regular Christian, you stay around Christian friends. So you don't really get an opportunity to hear other side. For most people, that at least my case, that was the case. And so I wanted to be a Christian counselor, so I went to college to become a psychologist, to become a Christian counselor. And I was actually mad at first that a Christian college wouldn't take me. Now, it never happened because I would just been indoctrinated in their bullcrap.
Right. Who knows where you would have ended up at that point?
Right. Yeah. Who knows? As firebrand as I am, I'd have been a firebrand Christian probably.
Right.
So, going to college, I had no desire, so people know, I had no desire for atheism. It wasn't like, I hated God or anything. But I was forced to take 2 classes on the Bible. Well, no, 2 classes on religion. One on world religions and then one on just the Bible. And I was mad. I mean, I'm serious. I said, this is bull crap. This is religious indoctrination. As a Christian would. Heard facts of other shit or even my own religion.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm just reminding people, so when they see how hardcore I am now, that wasn't like, oh, I always was evil and always desired to, sin, just founded bullcrap.
You weren't just looking to destroy God.
Yeah, no, actually, I was looking to promote God. In fact, so the first class I took was world religions. I had to learn a religion each week. I think I told you this before. But I learned, just give me a quick synopsis to get to the art.
Yep.
Because everything's an illusion for me. Because it just has been.
Yep, for sure.
So I in the class, though, when we're learning world religions, they didn't let us debate them. We just had to explain them as an honest, just here's the facts.
Right.
No opinion, just here's the facts. Which I now know is actually a good way to learn. Because you're removing all your bias. And that's what people understand, too. When I approach prehistory, I do not approach it from a fucking bias. Not even an anarchist or socialist one. I just try to go, what the hell is the facts?
Right.
And then I try to go, where should those facts lay? And I've told people this before, that I think sometimes as a rationalist, I try to take an idea like a balloon and let it float. What I mean by that is I remove as much possible bias of any kind of what that has to be. So the thing can float free. Because then I can see where it lands correctly. Not somehow me nudging the balloon. Come on to anarchism or whatever. Come on to Christianity,
Right.
But just let it fall and then go, okay, if I honestly assess what is it doing and try to understand that.
Yeah.
Honestly, without bias. And that's the same thing I would hope that people approach these videos, or like you. I always say, I'm not a skeptic. I don't start with doubt. And I'm not a believer. I don't start with belief. I'm a rationalist. I want to understand.
Right.
What is the facts? What do the facts mean? What appropriately should I form beliefs from that understanding?
Yep.
So the second class was on the Bible, and there was a lot of archaeology. I was like, what? I thought, I'm going to ace this because I read the Bible twice.
Right.
I also disagree when atheists say that, if you read the Bible, become atheist. I didn't. I read the Bible twice.
Right. Lots of people read the Bible. And yeah,
I did become a different Christian. I will admit that. Because all of a sudden I realized, Paul's an asshole. He doesn't seem to actually follow Jesus.
Right.
I mean, that was my conception is, Jesus might be not that bad, but Paul seems like a dickhead. And he seems like a sexist, bigoted asshole that Jesus doesn't seem like he was.
Right. Yeah.
Most of the time, because I learned later that he is a bigot too, but different issues.
Sure.
But certainly Paul had nothing. The movement of Paul and the movement of Jesus to me are not actually together.
Right.
If you really look at the facts, it doesn't match up. And they miss. So I started to become a different Christian. They didn't become an atheist. It didn't read that. Here's another thing, a problem I have with this belief that you read the Bible, become an atheist. You read the Bible and you become an atheist about Christianity or possibly even Judaism,
right?
Maybe even by extent Muslims, because of all of these are somewhat Judeo-Christian beliefs or Jewish-related beliefs.
Right.
They all stem from that, or father of Abraham or whatever, Abrahamic beliefs.
Yeah.
But it's not really rational or honest epistemically to say that this means all religion is wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Seriously, people.
Yeah.
This is, I know people hate that I fucking point out facts, but this is a fact.
Lots of religions don't rely on the Christian Bible.
Right. So the Christian Bible could be absolute bullshit. Abrahamic religions could be absolute hogwash horseshit, and that still have nothing to do with the rest of religions of the world.
Yeah.
So to say that I read the Bible and I realized that all gods are wrong. No, you read the Bible and realized the Bible was wrong.
Yeah.
And thus, by extension, maybe all Abrahamic religions were wrong.
Sure.
But that doesn't prove that Judaism has anything to do with Hinduism.
Right.
Or Sikhism.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Or Native American beliefs or whatever, African beliefs. I mean, see, so.
It's a colonial mindset that tells us that if this one's wrong, then everything in the world is wrong.
But see, that goes back to, like I told you before, I said this, but not often. I am not what people call a new atheist.
Right.
The reason I do not like that term is, to me personally, it's a reactionary issue.
Yep.
That a lot of it had to do with 9/11 or just Christian forcing religion in general. It makes the reaction that I'm not going to stand for this. Where me, if there was no Christianity, I'd fight religion the same. If there was no Hinduism, I'd fight it the same. If it was only Native American beliefs, I'd fight it the same. So I have nothing that there's no point you can point to. I am against fucking falsehood. Yeah. I am in favor of the truth, like archaeology, history that we're trying to show people. That is what I like.
Yeah.
So, well, here's because I do want to understand. I don't want to have my own fake false beliefs.
Right.
So I also,
if I'm mistaken, I want to change my opinion.
This is what I tell people, because someone said before, how can you promote atheism like I do, as hardcore as I do? Because I say I'm not skeptical about it all, and I said I'm certain. They said you can't. How can you do it if you're not certain? I said, oh, but I am certain. I am epistemically certain. So people understand when you say epistemically certain, you mean certain is relation to the facts.
Yeah.
If you have new facts, I will listen. If they just prove the facts I already think, and you can show that this is the rational thing, then I'm a rationalist, will move to the rational conclusion.
Right.
What I will not do, like agnostics like to seemingly all have to do, is hold open, even though there's no facts and no reason to do so, hold open that we can't be certain because of possibilities that are not proven and not known and not
because of the unknown unknowns.
That's not reasonable.
No, of course not. Yeah.
So, not that you can't do that, but don't try to tell me that that's the only rational position, because if agnostic will try to tell me, I just go, oh my God, you don't understand reason, first off. Okay, explain reason. Because I'd like to hear it. Do you know what epistemic thinking is? Do you know what epistemic honesty or epistemic humility is? You don't have it. If you were epistemically humility, you would not say this is the only position, because that is not being epistemic. I do not say it's the only position. I say that the facts do not show there is any reason to believe in magic of any kind, or supernatural, anything.
Yeah.
That is what the facts show. I don't have to postulate that in the future different facts could come up, because guess what? Being epistemically certain is not this belief. Like when people are, so there's two kinds of main certainty in philosophy, in a sense: epistemic certainty and psychological certainty.
Right.
A lot of people are those agnostics are psychologically certain they're correct.
Yeah.
They're not epistemically certain, because the epistemic requires that you have the evidence to back up that position.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. This is the difference. So anyways, so this goes back to the art too. Because I wanted to be epistemically certain, I tried to be as close to the facts or the pictures as possible, because I didn't want to make shit up. I fucking hate that. But now that I've researched U.S. case law, the closer you are to the actual things, the more fucked you are at trying to use it commercially and then saying it's fair use.
So if your map looks too much like somebody else's map, or your art looks too much like somebody else's art, then it could be argued in court that you have.
If you use it for commercial uses, yes.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's way harder. I hadn't used it commercially anyways. I mean, my blog has been free for at least 6 years, whatever. I'm anti-capitalist, so I'm doing. And people understand too. It's not that I didn't do this to become fame. I didn't do this to make money. Obviously, because I haven't been free the whole time. My thing has always been the same.
Yeah.
Once I stopped being a Christian, it was because of the archaeology and the facts. And so I wanted to research as much and present the archaeology and the facts so others can see the fucking truth and then be freed from the domination of religious oppression. Along the way, I also realized how fucking toxic hierarchy is.
Yeah.
And I became an anarchist. And I really realized back that a lot of my thinking had already been anarchist anyways. I just didn't know. They just say, I don't like authority. And I'm like, yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
But now I realize there's a justification why.
There's stuff going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, whether or not before I knew, I now realize there is. And so that's what I try to present too. So this art stuff relates to the these videos. If I saw the art, right, that I try to do to the facts, but present them in ways to make people understand, I see someone else using this in a way that's not like the ancient aliens. That shit pisses me the fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's worse to me. It's like inventing a new religion.
Right.
I fucking hate that. Because I hate religion in general, because it's lies and because it deludes people. And it gives you the right to not try or to not fight the system that's absolutely oppressing us.
Yeah.
If we don't understand we're actually being oppressed, we don't fight back. Or we think that our fighting back is our problem. I have a hatred for authority, not authority's fucked, and I'm an anarchist that hates authority because authority is fucked.
Yeah.
It's the authority, not me, that's the problem. They try to make so that's why some people say about psychology. And I'm not saying after going to psychology, I was won over by psychology. I realized, wow, they got a whole bunch of good stuff, and they have some shit in there too.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like you say, there's a lot of diagnoses that are assigned as like just people who are anti-authority.
Like I said, they would say to me that I'm anti-authority, and really I'm just an anarchist.
Right, yeah.
And that's a healthy thing, I realize. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want everyone equal. Oh my God, how terrible of me.
Yeah, that's right. I don't like being abused or told what to do unjustly. So that makes me bad somehow? No.
Yeah, so that made me, but so I from the beginning, that's why I say I'm a revolutionary, and some people think, well, you don't talk enough about politics. But I do.
You just got to see it. Yeah.
Right, because you guys just hear me talking about prehistory and not grasping. Yeah, but once you do understand prehistory, you start to see that capitalism, as Marx said, is not inherent in humans. Oh, that's not something I guess. I think Marx did more guessing. He had some facts, but more guessing from the facts, and I'm doing more facts and less guessing.
Right.
So he's still correct. Absolutely, this is not healthy, and it's been, in fact, almost from the point of the capitalism to me starts, it's war and genocide, and it just never fucking ends.
Yeah.
So it's very obvious to me that this shit has always been terrible, and the moment that we start realizing how fucking it will never bring peace, it will only bring more war.
Yeah. And
grasping that, and then people, it always been war. Wrong. It has not always been war. Yeah. The tendency to kill each other over oil needed to be developed. And the fact that it will just like, but also I want to do these videos because there's other people, like I just watched a video today about Mesopotamia, and he said the first states in Mesopotamia were socialism because they took the farmers' crops and all put it together and then paid for war and paid for stuff. And I'm like, no, that shit is not. So then Americans do that, right? Taxes. And it also is wrong because they make statements that are not correct. Right. He said that they took all the grains and put them together. You mean 30%? That's not all. That's not even close to all. Right. So it's just inaccurate. And then also, but they say once in a while, sometimes good, but then they don't understand it. He said, or one of the videos I watched in their video too, one of the videos said that, the merchant class basically was able to hire people to work for them and then make money. I'm like, yeah, like capitalists, petty capitalists. I mean, so they hired workers who did labor, and didn't get didn't own the means of production. Other people did, and sat on their asses and drank alcohol from slaves. And
you can call them whatever you want, merchant class,
right. But my point is, the merchant class had slaves that take care of them internally. Had some slaves, but also workers in the field paid a wage. Right. So that we're just like now. I mean, what the fuck is the difference? I mean, I just go, I don't know how honest people are when they're looking at stuff. And I thought, here's a smart person who just said this is proto-socialism. They had slavery for proto-socialism? Fucking seriously? Wow. I guess they need more anarchist understanding, really, to help clean out that bull crap.
We need a more complex understanding of what's going on here.
I'm like, Well, I think it's funny, too, is how you can start with, well, it's proto-socialism, and then this new thing took over, and these merchants, and then they're selling labor, and they don't own the means of production. I'm thinking, you mean proto-capitalism? I mean, if you can so easily throw out the word proto-socialism, why is it so hard for these capitalists to throw out the word proto-capitalism? Because there's all these wars and shit, and it sounds bad.
Yeah. Yep.
But
well, it's similar mindset to like people that claim that slavery wasn't part of capitalism. It's like,
yeah,
obviously that's not right.
the U.S. did it because of merchants, not because of slavery. I'm like, they did it because of both.
Yeah.
So that's why I told you too. I really like this black and white thinking, which is actually a fallacy if you apply it without reason, which I feel that is often being done.
Yeah, generally, eh?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important to go through the details like we are and explain so people can grasp this. So I realize that I'm not going to use the art. I'm just going to keep using it like I have been using it, which is for education and for people to research. I told you before, unlike people that other people that are, or they call it alternative archaeology or some bullshit. That's not what I'm doing, fuckers. Archaeologists have a real problem with those alternative people, and most people, the archaeologists that see my shit or talk to me, do not feel that way.
Right.
Here's the other thing: I don't feel that way against them. I told you before, and I'll say it again. I appreciate all the hard work that archaeologists have done and historians have done. I'm ethnographers and people that and anthropologists. This stuff is how I learned what I learned. To then understand these facts without these biases that I think even, unfortunately, archaeologists, historians, and things can have biases because they're pro, capitalism or pro empires or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. They come from European colonial capitalist backgrounds, right? Like so there's going to be that kind of angle that they don't necessarily examine.
Or gender. They're all heteronormative. Yep. Everybody is heterosexual.
Right.
Bullshit. Right. And then when they see it, they're like, oh, wow, those priests are all gay. Oh, well, there's still just one gender, or one thing. Like, oh, they're taking it dressing and trans. And no, it's not trans. It's, they just wanted to be, seen as a woman or like Hatshepsut or whatever her name is, the queen of Egypt. She was obviously they're transgender across, dressing. Oh no, she just wanted power. Right. That's why she had all of the statues of her that were originally feminine made to be masculine. Right. And wore a fake beard. Yeah, well, she had to be a thing. Really? Because other queens ruled and no one else did that.
Right.
There's one person randomly desired to be male, to be seen as male, to be portrayed as male, and to dress and act and think and like male. Oh, okay. But she doesn't, qualify for trans or genderqueer or
any. Yeah.
That is the fact. This is to me the fact that you don't even think that is really toxic. It's toxic not only to the history, the actual history,
right,
but it's also toxic to the heroes that we could learn for the LGBTQ, whatever community.
Yeah.
It's normal. It has been historically proven. It is not some new people didn't decide to become trans in 1980 or some bullshit.
No, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that just it makes me mad. And they go, oh well, it wasn't very common. Yeah, because a lot of them got killed and tortured and things. So yeah, people stay quiet. That's like me. I told you before. The reason I just say man is because it's just fucking simpler.
Yeah.
Because if I say to everybody that I'm genderqueer, which is actually what I am, or two gendered, male and female, not just male.
Yeah.
Then people think, well, you must be gay or bisexual, and I'm like, but I'm not.
Right. They make lots of assumptions about you.
And they start treating me fucking different, which is. But even when I say that, if I said that, then still am I accepted as men? Now I'm not accepted with men, and I'm not accepted anyways with women because of how I look and act. So it really wouldn't matter. It's just simpler to me, and to not deal with the bullshit is just say that. So it's called hiding.
Yeah.
And but I also don't hide because I tell people it. So because it goes back to the thing is I think we need representation.
Yeah.
And I'm an intersex person, and that may or may not all intersex people claim to be two gendered. Some do. Some are trans. But a lot of us too probably would say we were mixed if society accepted that label.
Right.
So when they say, well, a lot of intersex people don't do that, Damien, you're a little bit different, like only 20 or something percent or whatever. Right, but how many of them are safe enough in this society to fucking tell people, yeah, I'm not a man or woman? They're like, what the fuck? And people say this to me before. I'm just barely accepting trans. I can't accept this. And I'm like, yeah, what a fucking bigoted thing to say.
Yeah, no kidding. Accept people who they are, as they tell you who they are, and that's it. Like, it doesn't. You don't have to get into like some weird, like some wild understanding of like researching everything that you know. Just respect people as they present themselves to you.
It is exactly. And anyways, but so that's why a lot of times, like I told you, I don't do tons of videos on it or whatever activism. It's just I've already got enough stuff in my head, but I do want to do with you a video about intersex from the beginning and historical and everything, and explain
for sure.
I do believe that we need to have good role models in activism that speaks it so it can get truth out there. But anyways, going back to the art, I did, and I'm gonna leave in there because and I'm trying to get the links now that had all been lost from the being connected to LinkedIn. And how that relates to the videos is that, like I said about these videos, I want to present the facts the best I can. That's why I have you read stuff. And a lot of times I have you read Wikipedia. One of the reasons I like Wikipedia, though, even though it's not always like the greatest source, they try to present it like I do.
Right.
Just the facts. Not so much opinion. Sometimes they do, but I mean, a lot of it's just here's the presented things.
Yeah.
Too much to me when people write books, they put their own opinion in.
Yep.
Like I.
Yeah. The more words you have to put in, like when you have a word minimum you have to meet, you got to fill that space, right?
Well, and you want to sell it, so you want to make it exciting.
Yeah.
They're not trying to make it exciting on Wikipedia. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're trying to just present stuff boring as fucking hell, but it actually gives, in the long run, to me, it's better because then you're not getting all this sway of bias.
The thing I like, I know it's not considered research material, but the great thing I like about Wikipedia is that everything that it says, you can find a link to a source for it.
Exactly.
So it may not be a research material in and of itself, but it can lead you to actual research materials.
Right. And so I think that this is important because it's really hard. And also it puts lots of different sources together, which is something I also learned about making a book. If you cite something, even a quote, you're supposed to get authorization.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And here's the crazy thing. You can only use 75 quotes from the Bible. Otherwise, you can be sued.
By who?
You fucking believe that? By the owners that make the book, like NIV or whatever.
Oh, for fuck's sakes.
Dude, I'm telling you. Oh, that's why I'm saying I'm going to put the evolutionist book, because at first I was going to have 10,000 references because I wanted to, like you said, cite everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Now I'm going to have my book and it's going to have 0 fucking references. Well, I'm going to talk off my fucking head because I don't want to get sued in this capitalist fucked world.
Yeah.
Especially in a book that I basically was just trying to do for activism anyways. And then I have the pictures. I can't do the pictures because the pictures also have references, which is also a problem. Because and by the way, when they told me that I had to ask for references, at first I called or whatever, tried to contact 15 people just to start with. And only one responded that I could not use a dictionary reference for a term. Fond du lac, which has to do with induced delusional disorder in a sense. What that means is, and people are like, oh, that sounds crazy. Oh, no. They usually say it happens to people that are around schizophrenics. The schizophrenics believe their bullshit so much that someone very close to them emotionally starts to believe it too.
Right.
Yeah, I go, you mean groupthink? Because it's not like it's limited to fucking people around schizophrenics.
Right. Yeah.
Do you mean like someone with a persuasive idea like me or persuasive ability so people start believing us? Yeah, because we're persuasive.
Like
or passionate.
Yeah, you could almost apply that to like cult leaders, right?
Oh, no, they do apply it to cult leaders, not maybe. That's why I wanted to use the reference, because it says no one else was bold enough to say it, but this one medical journal thing said it applies to cult leaders. I was like, great, because they were trying to say it's only this weird thing that only happens once in a while. I'm like, oh, fucking bullshit. It happens daily. Or
Right.
happens when people are mobs. You've been taken over. If you have induced, it's not normal delusional disorder, it's induced delusional disorder. It's something that
Mass hysteria.
right. Is a delusion, is an induced delusional disorder, and that's actually in America we don't call it that. That's the World Trade or Health Organization's thing is called induced delusional disorder. Here it's called something else. I can't remember now exactly, but I didn't like it because it sounds more like it's an accident and it's not as possible to happen. And I'm like, yeah, I like the induce part. Because I realize that we can induce people to do things. So,
yep.
And I'm totally sold on that. Since I can do it, I know that it's absolutely possible to not have any mental problems and still have it done to you.
Yeah.
And because to me, it goes back to our mirror neurons medically, or say scientifically, and then psychologically, we're bonded as a social species. So social species, it's always been behooving to us to kind of work together.
That makes sense.
It's easy to hijack that.
Yep.
So, anyways, I'm gonna have you read this stuff. This week probably won't be as good as some of the other weeks because it's not getting so much into the war.
Okay.
Because we talked about like how we got here. This is like that little in between before the city states and the priest kings and shit start taking over in war.
Okay. Do we want to play this video that I have from?
We know what we're talking about. Yes, the 30 seconds. Yes, and then play the 30 seconds first, right? That little portion.
Okay.
Just so we know what we're talking about, and then play the actual link, for the video for this time.
Yeah, like the first 30 seconds that shows the map again.
That's right. Every time.
Okay. Where is it here? All right. So first we've got our 30 seconds of our map.
By around 7,000 to 6,000 BC, people began to move south along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to what were by then the fertile floodplains of Mesopotamia, specifically in the land that today makes up most of Iraq and parts of northern Syria. Mesopotamia, which means land between rivers, is the Greek name for the area, and it's here that early farms began to really take root on a much larger scale.
Okay, so that's
good. And by the way, when they say 7,000 BC, it's basically add 2,000 years to that. So it's 9,000 to 7,000 years ago, which is what, in a sense, what we covered last time, which is the formation before the real wars started. Wars and shit, as we read several times now, you have in more than one video. 7,000 years ago to 5,000 years ago, clans fought.
Right.
So, but since this video is about 7,000 to 6,000, it's right at the beginning before that shit got to full swing. But it is starting.
Okay, so now I'll share this video for this section of that video.
Much of our understanding of Ubaid culture comes from the ruins of a city that later on would be famous in Sumerian mythology as the home of the god Enki. That city was Eridu. Even in antiquity, Eridu was believed to have been a very ancient, almost mythical place. For example, in the very beginning of the text known as the Sumerian king list, it's written, "After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Alalgar ruled for 36,000 years. Two kings, they ruled for a total of 6,800 years. Then Eridu fell, and the kingship was taken to Bad Tabira."
Okay, now besides the fact that we know that's absolute horseshit, we also know that basically even 64,800 years ago, I'm not 100% sure people were even near Iraq.
Right.
So
Yeah.
well, maybe they were in Israel, possibly, but they certainly, I don't think, were in the Iraqi floodplain doing anything, because that they didn't even go down there. It's after 9,000, maybe 8,000 or something. I mean, so it maybe 9,000, but I mean, it not no 60.
That's
no.
a long time.
And then also we know the absolute bullshit of this is history, because 28,000 years and 36,000 years.
Yeah.
That's just absolutely fucking nonsense. But I think it's important to understand that they're saying that they think that kings rule for a long time. Although I would say it's probably 7,000 or 6,000 and down. So
Right.
it's not, once again, accurately, it's not that, because of what I've researched. To me, the first proto-king is about 6,700 and looks like to me in the Balkans, and then people move in, or the idea was moving in, around 7,000 into Turkey and then down into Mesopotamia. So kings to me are after 7,000 for sure. So this is all horseshit. or priest kings, I should say. Not they're related completely to religion.
Okay. Oh.
Another later Babylonian poem states, "A reed had not come forth, a tree had not been created, a house had not been made, a city had not been made. All the lands were sea, then Eridu made."
And people need to understand,
in spite of both of these texts,
people understand too, when it says like the land Eridu made, everything was sea. This kind of matches the Egyptian belief that, in a sense, everything was ocean, and then a pyramid mountain comes out of the ocean, and that's the first land. So this has to do with mythology. Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of this is like their beliefs, right? Like it's not
their
like
beliefs.
Real stuff.
Yeah.
Being more works of mythology than history, the later peoples of Mesopotamia may have been onto something. Archaeologists have determined that the site of Eridu may have been inhabited as far back as 8,000 BC, over 10,000 years ago. During the Ubaid period, Eridu was a good place to settle down. It had plenty of land suitable for farming, as well as plenty of fish that could be attained from the nearby marshes close to the Gulf. In those days, the shores of what's today the Persian Gulf were much further inland than they are today. Such a place in those days may have seemed to have been a paradise in what was otherwise a dry, inhospitable desert. The local inhabitants may have even thought that it was the home of a god. That god would be Enki, the god of fresh waters, the sciences, technology, and the arts, who was also known for his wisdom and had a soft spot for mankind. He would go on to become one of the most prominent deities in the Sumerian pantheon.
Can you pause for a second?
Yep.
During the Ubaid...
Go back, because I want to talk about that picture, just so people understand something.
This one?
Okay, if you notice, these hats they have on have a bunch of like horns.
Right.
And it relates to bull horns, and bull horns were considered to be strong controllers. If you notice, he's stepping on top of a bullhorn.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You see that? Right. So, but the female has it too. And I like I've said before, everything to me starts, gods, just so people understand real quick my opinion. Gods start from totemistic animal deities, okay? Then it merges into animal deities and female, women, or whatever, deities. Then, so I think it's like 13,000 or so, or maybe earlier, but sometime around there, animal deities from totemistic beliefs, sort of spirit animals or whatever. Like we talked about the dog last time.
Right.
So it emerges, or bulls or whatever, things of strong power. So the deities are animals, and then women start making alcohol and pottery and everything later. So it's that hunter-gatherer grains, right? Not the hunting, the hunting side, but the gathering, which is for females or women were doing this. or maybe, men that were more geared towards trans or whatever, genderqueer might have also been doing this, because it's not 100% distinction of like we bullshitly do now.
Right.
But I'm just giving a general thing. So, but it's seen as the gatherers are one type of person, generally female gendered, and then generally male gendered were put into hunting, which I do think some women could have been doing that also. There's already evidence of that. It's back at 10,000 years ago. Women were also hunting sometimes, not all. In fact, I think there's a scene in Spain where a woman is actually one person maybe, and a group of men at war.
Okay.
So once again, I think our current thing is that, too gendered, when that's not really ethnographically, that doesn't match up with the story of the world, that people did not think that happens. That gendered thinking is 5,000 and down. Above 5,000, especially above 7,000, almost for sure it's at least 3 genders, 4 genders, 5 or something. I don't know. But way more actually gender, accepting than now. The fucking bigots want to, kill people that are just saying I'm a different gender.
Right. Yeah.
Fucking craziness and unethical and vile. But transphobia and intersex phobia and genderqueer phobia or just homophobia. But anyway, so I think that the bulls represent, because I do know this ethnographically with shamanism, a lot of horns in general, or fangs, big teeth, are considered stars in the heavens. So I do not think that at the time that they were looking at constellations. I think that's a evolution of the original idea.
Okay.
I do think it is possible there was regions like that. Region is our ancestors. That's heaven where we go. Our ancestors go to those particular stars. I think later that concept moved more and more mythologically, and then that's because that's the bull or the thing, I don't think that was original exactly. They did think bulls related to areas of space, but I think not in the same way we think of. Just like the Venus sometimes is seen with the crescent moon. I think that's where they get the bullhorn idea, because goddesses were related to the moon often. I mean, later than gods also. But that's what I think, that moon and celestial is the horns on the head. Two ways. One, told you horns or fangs or whatever, teeth are stars, so it's heavens. And then the moon and the bull are related. But also the moon, the bullhorn with the sun in the middle is considered like the dawn and the sunset, and then the full moon in a sense, or full sun. So it's still related to the horns. So I'm just saying celestial things are related to these horns on their heads.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify that. And
that's perfect.
Someone else could look at this and like, what the hell? I don't see nothing. Like, yeah, I see horns everywhere.
Right. Yeah, no, none of that showed up to me at all.
Oh, really?
I had no idea. I'm looking at the picture and I'm listening to what he's saying, so I'm focused on what he's saying at the same time. So to have the added context is really helpful.
Well, that's why I wanted to help understand, so that when you see these horn things, these are gods,
right?
Because it relates to celestial power. And if a king or somebody had this, it would relate to that you have authority under a god or authority under heaven.
Okay.
In the Sumerian pantheon. During the Ubaid period, Eridu was still just a small village community with a rather humble shrine dedicated to Enki. Excavations at Eridu show that initially, Enki's sanctuary was little more than a small brick room, less than 8 square meters, with an altar at one end and a stand in the center for ritual offerings. In fact, ashes and fish bones have been discovered here, which may have been part of some ritual offerings to the god. Some archaeologists believe that every so often, the people of Eridu would take part in communal feasts that may have involved prayers to the god, along with singing and music.
Pause for a second again.
As the town grew...
That's not a new thought. There's a 12,000-year-old buried shaman in Israel that they know took 7 stages to do. And there's like 78 turtle shells where people obviously ate the turtle in a feast.
Okay.
And then buried them with the shaman, female.
Interesting.
Women were, in a sense, like I told you before, women, that's why I said everything started for women and then later men. After 7,000, then I think either men were invented, then gods, or they already kind of were, but then they became prominent over women, or the same and then later over by 5,000. So, but it's important to understand that because of that, it limits, what they think. So the women are in a sense connected to the deity, like I said, because they represent the moon. And the reason, like I told you, like the star of Venus, the star of Ishtar, it represents that. Okay. And the star of Ishtar, in a sense, is next to the moon, in a sense. So the moon is in its crescent form, like bullhorns. So
okay,
right. So and later, then men are also, because then later the star symbol, it's like a ding or something like that. The term in Sumerian, in crudiform, means any deity, but that didn't start that way. And in Israel, there's a 6,000 something year old star emblem for the Glacial culture or something like that.
Okay. And
they don't know what it's for, but it looks exactly like the Star of Ishtar. It's an 8-pointed star.
Okay.
It's an 8-pointed star. And it looks more shamanistic, though, where then later those are more mythological. And so that's why I've told you before that people don't understand when they, shamanism. That's why I tell people, the things you really need to understand for religion is animism, because everybody has it. Shamanism, because that's how we get paganism, which people will call all the current religions today are just a form of, to me, a version of paganism or whatever.
Right.
But paganism comes out of shamanism. So you need to understand shamanism more than you think, because that's really what relates to all this bullshit. It'll sound like it came from nothing until you read all the shaman and you're like, wow, I can see where that evolved.
Right.
And then also why it's important to understand that it evolved is it helps you understand the humanness of it and the lack of supernaturalness of it.
Right. Yeah, it becomes more clear that it's not like inspired by an actual god and more like a learned behavior that came from.
Right. People just kept adapting and making it more mythological and more mythological.
Cool.
Both the temple and the village expanded. By 4500 BC, the temple stood on a platform about a meter high. The expansion and height of the temple would continue to increase during the centuries until it turned into a step-like pyramid called a ziggurat. As villages such as Eridu grew into prosperous towns, they attracted travelers and merchants. Some may have come to visit its temples and sanctuaries, like those dedicated to Enki, and make their own offerings to the god. Many of them brought items from their own village.
Sorry?
You see how, going back, how they both had a star?
Oh.
There's that symbol. Just trying to help people relate. See the star? You have the horns, which I said relates to the sky.
Right.
But you also have an actual star.
Yeah.
Is that 8-pointed star? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no, 6. Looks like. But anyways, I'm saying later the variation of the star symbol in crudiform could be less than 8, but it starts as the Star of Ishtar as 8.
Okay.
To the god. Many of them brought items from their own villages and towns that they donated to such temples or traded for local goods, such as barley, sheep, or some of Eridu's distinctive pottery. An interesting example of international trade in Eridu at the time had to do with copper. Copper is a very useful metal, but it's not native to southern Mesopotamia. It had to be imported into the region from places as far away as what's today modern Oman or Turkey. It's quite remarkable that even during the Ubaid period, artisans were forging basic items out of copper in Eridu. Another item imported into the region, also likely from Turkey, was obsidian.
And that's it.
Right. And so, like, that's what I go back to the same thing I said. If people have this opinion that everything was closed system, like when the Christian asked me, well, how did water get on the earth? Because I don't understand how you can have earth be totally volcanic and hot, basically melting off all its natural water or pushing it into the core somehow. And then all of a sudden have all this water without God. And I thought, well, that's because you're assuming that the earth is a closed system. And since it's not a closed system, there's this thing called the heavy bombardment period.
Right.
All kinds of asteroids hit the earth and gave it water. And comets gave it water too, but that gave it, I believe, if I remember right. So I'm not claiming that I'm the best at science. But I believe it gave heavy water, which is distinctly different than regular H2O water.
Yeah, like
asteroids gave us.
I work in fluid management. Like that's my job, is waste disposal. And heavy water has a lot of salt or other material in it, and that's what gives it the weight.
Yeah, I like I said, I just know that they're different, and so you distinctly can tell what relates to what.
Right.
So comets don't, like people think, oh well, comets gave us water. No, not really. Comets gave heavy water, which is, I think, I can't remember now. Once again, I'm not great at science, but it's like 5% of the Earth or something, or 10%.
Right.
Wrong. And then asteroids will go, yeah, but there's almost no water in asteroids. Yeah, but if you have about, I don't remember now, say 50 billion years or whatever, you have a long time to get accumulation.
Yep, that's right.
So same thing with these ideas. And when people think, oh, well, because I hear sometimes even archaeologists wrongly, not because they're trying to. That's another thing I hate about our alternative archaeology claims.
They're trying to.
They're trying to conspiracy. They don't want the truth out. Yeah, I
don't buy that.
I know a lot, and I've talked to a lot of archaeologists, and they're very open and receptive to rational ideas. Very few of them have problems with me. And I say a lot of wild shit because I have a lot of wild facts. And I present things and I explain it with wild reason that makes sense.
Yeah.
To the facts. So I don't buy this bullshit that they're trying to hide. No, like you said, they start with colonial ideas that we start with biases.
Yeah.
Not that they're trying to do anything. They're actually probably the opposite.
Yeah.
Trying to be reasoned in whatever and not be religious minded, which is a biased thinking.
Yeah.
Or alternative thing that how somehow everything's a goddamn conspiracy.
Right.
Yeah. There's a conspiracy, all right, dumb fucks. It's bright and plain. It's called capitalism. That's a conspiracy. It's not going to bother you at all.
It's unrelated, but it's a similar phenomenon. It's the people who believe that they're hiding the cure for cancer, as though all the doctors and researchers all over the world are a part of this conspiracy to hide this thing, that rather than wanting the truth out, which is it's nonsense.
Yeah. Like I said, I like epistemic beliefs, meaning that they have to use facts and reason to support them.
Yeah.
It means that you have a valid and reliable or somewhat valid and reliable justification.
Yeah.
And that you mediate your beliefs to that.
People have biases, but that doesn't mean that they're hiding things. That's not the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would say that my experience is most archaeologists are pretty amazing, truly, and historians and stuff. You've seen me. I talked to them on the video before.
Yep.
They're not fighting me and shit and having these big problems, But so, like I said, I'm not at war with them at all. I actually I hope that they read my stuff, realize to think differently, and do more research.
Right.
And if they can prove me wrong, great. I'm not trying to fucking push some idea.
Yeah. Just trying to get at the truth.
Right. So I'm just saying, this alternative thing I really don't like because it's fucking lying to me, and they're just even like, I can't produce all the facts, so I'll just make shit up or whatever, or think that people must be making stuff up because I don't understand things. Yeah. Which is why, I think it's important to do what I've done and look at all the parts, understand totemism, understand animism, understand shamanism, not just understand the Bible and think that you can debunk every religion in the world. when you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. In fact, even archaeologists, they'll be honest with me and say, Damien, I don't really know that much about animism. And I go, see, and that's a problem.
Right.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Since every religious person in the world is a form of animism and something else.
Right.
To not understand it is, what's the word? Certainly not acceptable. I'll just try to be as nice as possible.
Sure.
How I feel.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable. You can't say, including atheists, the fact that atheists don't all know about animism is not acceptable.
Right.
Seriously. How can you say that you've debunked religion? And I said, well, do you know animism? You're like, well, I don't know anything about that shit. Then you haven't debunked animism, have you?
Right. Yeah. It makes me think, because when I was in my early like atheist days, I was, you go in and you're arrogant and you think you know it all because you read a book by some Richard Dawkins. But at the time, I didn't even know anything about like Jainism or Sikhism or, I didn't even know those existed. But you come in with this arrogant attitude, know-it-all stuff, and it's like,
right. And I'm not saying that I know a lot, a fuck lot, but even I don't know it all, and I'm not going to try to keep learning every fucking fact.
Right. Well, and it's impossible for one person to do that. But,
well, that's good, right? Epistemic humility, realizing, that's not. Or there's a thing called rational ignorance. There's some shit I don't need to know, or it's not going to hurt if I don't know it.
Yeah.
But to not have any understanding and say that you've debunked religion and you don't really understand shamanism and you don't understand animism, to me, you are fucking lacking.
Yeah. That's right.
Because most of the world's beliefs later relate to these two things. Totemism is in there a little bit, but totemism isn't so much just a religious practice. It's like an adjunct that goes along with animism and goes along with shamanism. And then later it's important to learn, but it's not as important. If I say if you got to learn everything, unlike me, you need to know at least something about animism and something about shamanism. Because those things relate heavily to what we call religion today.
Yeah.
To say that you're against stuff and not understand those at all.
Well, and like you say, like totemism too, right? Because that's pretty.
Yeah, well, I know. Yes, why you need to understand all the things I say, because hell yes, totemism too. I'm not saying you shouldn't understand it. I'm just making a comment that if you're going to try to just do the bare minimum, you have got to understand animism 100%.
Right.
And shamanism, you got to understand too, because in a sense, shamans became priests.
Right.
They became healers. I mean, they already were there.
Yeah.
And also, when you understand that too, the original shamans, like the Koraks up in Far East Russia, the male is the clan leader. So you have this male figure, right? But the religious leader is the woman. She also has a bald head. Even though it's fucking freezing, right? She has a bald head.
Right.
The first females and looking like deities in Çatalhöyük had bald heads. Do you think that's a accident?
There might be a relation there.
Might be a relation. So once you understand that this shit in shamanism, you start to go, oh, I think I might know who that bald-headed woman is. A shaman.
There you go.
So... But this is, they also understand the dualism. There's also the male leader. So that's why I said it's hierarchical kind of, but it's equalitarian kind of.
Okay, yeah.
Which is confusing to us because we just think hierarchical is one person at top, man or whatever, and that's it.
Right.
It was more like women kind of were the head of the women and men are the head of the men, and they kind of work together unilaterally, somewhat equalitarian, see what I'm saying? So it's like I said, it's more complex than people like to think.
It's not set up the way we set up our society.
No. But once you grasp that, and that's what shamanism, did in a sense.
Right.
When you look at the first paganism, well, I try to think it's first paganism, you can see its evolution from shamanism. Some people are like, oh, well, that doesn't sound right. Really? When you understand Norse beliefs, Norse have totemism. Norse have heavy shamanism. In fact, even the deity, it says he was a shaman, or believes that you need to support shamanism and not forget shamanism, meaning that shamanism obviously came first.
Yeah.
Which, they already know that shamanism is 70% of the indigenous people of the world are shamans. So
Right.
it's a big deal. So when you say debunk religion and know nothing about shamanism, 70%.
70%. Yeah.
And then when you understand too that when they tested people, 100% are animus. 100. And think that you can do religion stuff and debunk it and somehow not address the 100% of indigenous people in the world. And then like the guy who wrote the book about animism says that it's 100% in all religious people. Anyone religious. You're spiritual, not religious? Well, that you just said I'm an animist, what you really said.
Right. Yeah.
Hi, I'm an animist. Or I have a version, let's put it better, probably. Because he wouldn't like you just claiming that there's only one kind of animism.
Right.
You have a version of animism, probably more accurate. So let me try to be accurate also, since I do understand. Yeah. Why not teach it correctly?
Sure. Yeah. Makes sense.
I'm not same thing. I'm not saying that every paganism is the same, or that every polytheism or every theism is the same. In fact, I'm saying the exact opposite, people. They aren't the same, but they're related. Yeah. They're not unrelated in a sense. Yeah. So that's the point people need to get. So anyways, go ahead and do the reading.
Okay.
We can talk some more.
Where's my cursor? There it is. All right. So we got Eridu, Tel Abu Shaharain.
Right, and that the Tel means an earthen mound that's produced because of layers of culture building on top of the same area. That's what a Tel is. So Tel Eridu, or whatever it is, that's the archaeological name for the site. Eridu is the actual what the people called it, and then the Tel means a mound of culture.
Okay.
Levels of culture that built up because you keep just building on top of the ruins of the other stuff. And you end up with this mountain-looking thing, and it's a Tel. Also called Tepe is the same thing in a sense. It's this mountain. It just has to do with so like Göbekli Tepe means belly mound or whatever, something like that.
Oh, okay.
But also, it could also even be like when people say Çatalhöyük, which actually means like fork road or something, or river or mountain. These are the same things. They're all, in a sense, Tels or Tepes.
Okay. Eridu is an archaeological site in southern Mesopotamia, or modern Iraq. Eridu was long considered the earliest city in southern Mesopotamia, located 12 kilometers southwest of Ur. Eridu was the southernmost of a conglomeration of Sumerian cities that grew around temples, almost in sight of one another. These buildings were made of mud brick and built on top of one another. With the temples growing upward and the village growing outward, a larger city was built. In Sumerian mythology, Eridu was originally the home of Enki, later known by the Akkadians as Ea, who was considered to have founded the city. His temple was called E-Abzu, as Enki was believed to live in Abzu, an aquifer from which all life was believed to stem. Enki was believed to be the god of creation, intelligence, crafts, water, seawater, lake water, fertility, semen, magic, and mischief. Originally, the patron god of the city.
Before you go on, I want to address that. Do you see how fertility was a factor in all the other factors?
Right.
This also is why it fucking irritates me when they're like, "Oh, those are all fertility deities."
Yeah, they didn't just have one thing; they weren't just fertility.
or they go, "Oh, mother goddess," and I'm like, that's not maybe even what it was. Or they go, "Well, it means fertility." Yeah, but fertility doesn't mean mother goddess.
That's just like movie archaeology, right?
Yeah, I'm like, once again about simplifying. You've simplified to the point that you're actually pushing falsehood.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's more accurate if you said that the original things had related to deified spirits, both of animals, mythical beings, and people. Would be how, in a sense, but even then, it's more complex than that.
Right. You don't want to oversimplify it even. Yeah.
But I'm just trying to make it so you can kind of grasp that. So don't just go, those are all fertility deities. Thus, they were all mother goddesses. And I'm like, whoa.
Not,
Even if,
yeah.
here's the thing. Let's just say that they were fertility like that. You have personally, or whatever, expanded that concept to mean like that's like all they are, or mainly what they are. And this goes back to the thing, even if they're women, I think women were grandmother spirits, not just mothers. So that limiting it to just moms is wrong. I think that they had, because they have grandfather, even the great spirit sometimes considered the grandfather, not the father, or it can be the father and the grandfather, or whatever. But and then even deities had sons, like even Jesus, the son. Like, so my point is, it's stages of things, and saying, well, this is all totemistic lineage, or which it kind of is, or it relates to this deities all being part of a thing, all fertility or something. Saying it's fertility like limits your understanding of the complexity. To me. Unless you're going to say fertility and a bunch of other stuff.
Right. Fertility is one piece in a puzzle.
Right. And well, even fertility, when we, there's also colloquialisms. When we say fertility, what do you think? You think babies.
Yeah.
Right? That's why they have people wrongly think mother goddesses.
Right.
Yeah, but their mean fertility could also mean semen, right? But it's because semen's liquid, meaning that fertility to them really related to water.
Right.
That's not babies.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, actually.
Right. So people will see a fish sometimes, like in even it relates to a deity, even a goddess or something. That's that's a mother goddess because it's a fish, like the Christians and the fish, right? But the reason is not, in a sense, the mother aspect; it's the water aspect. Right. Because people don't understand. It's like, well, they kind of do, but they don't. I talked to these guys before. That's why it's good to understand this stuff, because then everything that, like baptism.
Right.
They thought that once you go under the water, you have died, because most people that went under the water didn't come back up are fucking dead. So the water, in a sense, though, they thought, just like in a sense how things dry up, it goes up to the stars. So water was a pathway actually to heavens. So going down meant to go up.
Right.
I told you before about this. People go like, oh, it's fucking crazy. Really? So when you bury people 6 feet under the ground, they're in the ground, right? They don't ever go to heaven. They're stuck in the ground. They're like, no, they go to heaven. Right, because there actually is a pathway to heaven.
Right. Yeah.
So I said, it is important to understand this, because then you realize their thinking. Instead of saying, everything's a mother goddess. Well, what if it's a grandmother goddess? It has nothing to do. She can't bear children at all. It's because of her wisdom and it's something else. Fertility is too constricting of a bias to me.
Yeah, for sure.
No, and also some of them, I think it's 20 or 30%. I can't remember now because I don't want to quote it. But I read an article that looked at all the figuring, the Venus figurines or whatever, from the Upper Paleolithic, or basically before 12,000 to like 40,000, and a certain portion are obviously girls, not mothers, and not grandmothers. But some, like I said, are also grandmothers. Say maybe 20 or 30% are grandmothers. So it's the whole stage of thing. So to call them all mothers, goddesses, is also fucking wrong, because clearly some's a grandmother and some's a young girl or woman or something, pre-mother, at least. So they can't be a mother goddess if they're fucking pre-mother.
Right.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because he had said fertility and a list of a whole bunch of other things, meaning you trying to say that the emphasis is fertility when it's obviously many things, or fertility could have been how crops grow. Nothing to do with babies.
Right. Yeah.
So, but our bias of fertility is that it's babies, not how well the wheat is growing. But to them, that would have been the same thing.
Right.
In a sense, or in a similar thing. Go ahead. It's fine to.
No,
Ray
that's
Von
perfect.
looking for killers.
Okay, so originally the patron god of the city of Eridu, but later the influence of his cult spread throughout Mesopotamia and to the Canaanites, Hittites, and Hurrians. He was
Right, which is, in other words, Turkey and Israel. So people understand. The first one you read, Canaanites, is Israel, and the Hurrians is like maybe even northern Iraq, a little bit of Iran, but also southern Turkey. And then Hittites are central Turkey, so Turkey.
Okay. He was associated with the southern band of star constellations. Eridu was considered the first city in the world by the ancient Sumerians and is among the most ancient of the ruins from Mesopotamia. Founded in circa 5400 BCE or 7,422 years ago, Eridu was thought to have been created by the gods and was home to the great god Enki, also known as Ea by the Akkadians, who would develop from a local god of fresh water into the god of wisdom and magic, among other attributes, and stand with other deities such as Anu, Enlil, and Inanna as the most important in the Mesopotamian pantheon.
Right. And so also real quick, the fact that you look at nature and you see it as magical is animism.
Right.
So there's a lot of times I hate too, they go, well, back then everyone was animist and saw all kinds of natural things as being spirits or deified. I'm like, they do that shit now. They just have removed nature.
Right.
Why they're less pagan. To me, pagans have a closer deity or theism related to nature. The further you remove yourself from nature aspects or animistic aspects. Once you do that, it becomes more of these current world religions. But you need to understand why that would be. Let's just say that you had a deity like Israel in a basic dry desert wasteland, but next to the ocean. How do you relate to someone else who's from the arboreal forest or something of Europe, or from the northern Arctic, all Iceland or whatever? You know what I'm saying? If you have a deity from either of those, they're going to be all used to trees.
Yeah.
Or the one there's the ice or whatever, like ice giants in Nordic or whatever or something. It doesn't really. If you live in Hawaii, talking about ice giants when you've never even seen ice in your entire life.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
So you can see also how later scribes or whatever, or people who were doing religion, when atheists correctly say that religion started to be controlled by humans in a sense for the purpose of manipulation. Yes, they started cutting out some of the shit that wouldn't transfer universally.
Right.
So that doesn't mean, though, they didn't start that way. That just means that they took it off.
Right.
So when a homophobe says, oh, I used to be, an anarchist, and now I'm a homophobe, I'm like, you never were an anarchist.
then you didn't do anarchism correctly.
What the fuck? Saying that someone's different just because they have sex with someone different, like that is the most horseshit bullshit. What the fuck? Yeah. Or that women are different, like that, and to be treated different, like, or intersex people should be treated different. That's just what?
Yeah, it's my partner often questions things like, so your penis made you smart enough to do that job,
right?
That's what did it. It wasn't. There's nothing.
It's great.
That's why no women are allowed to do that, because your penis made you smart enough to do that.
Yeah, great. but it helps. We need to think like that, and that's what I'm saying. If you're truly an anarchist, you would have already thought that way. So how the fuck did you become a homophobe,
right?
Or against intersex people, or a transphobe, or whatever? The fuck is wrong with you? Yeah. Or how are you a sexist asshole? What the fuck? You call yourself an anarchist? You're ashamed to an anarchist to say some bullshit like that. Yeah. And that includes some of the historical anarchists who were fucking sexist or homophobic. What the fuck?
Yeah. They don't get a pass.
No, they don't. Not with me. I don't worship anybody. I'm a good anarchist. Absolutely. I don't worship shit, even myself. Exactly.
Yeah. It's one of those things like people do talk about, like Malatesta or Bakunin or Kropotkin, and in various ways, but you almost never hear like reverence in the way they speak of them, because anarchists don't worship people.
Well, because that would be accepting a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we can't acknowledge, and I'm not saying someone can't acknowledge me or acknowledge you for
Right.
what we've done.
Yeah.
That's not the same as worshiping us or seeing that we're better. I'm no better than you. I'm no better than an anarchist who has 2 friends on Facebook or whatever, or on Twitter,
Exactly.
has no followers. Someone or someone who has 1 million followers. The fuck does that matter?
Yeah.
Ad populum? That doesn't make things true.
If more popular made people understand anarchism better, that would be great.
It would be great for anarchism, but not because that you're having more followers means that you're more accurate or more worthy or some bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
No, not to me. I mean, but like I said, I am anti-classist in general, and I approach that probably in a way different usage word, that I just mean any kind of classing of people.
Right. Yeah.
And then
the
classifications.
classifications.
This class is elite and other ones are not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you say, like, it's anti-classism. It's all anti-hierarchy.
Right.
It's not. We're not placing anyone above anyone else.
I think that's just healthy to me.
Yeah.
Which is anarchism, which I love. Anarchism. It's healthy.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I'm still on page 1 here. Holy cow.
Okay.
The city of Eridu features prominently in Sumerian mythology, not only as the first city, but also as the home of the gods. The Sumerian king list cites Eridu as the city of the first kings, stating, after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu, and the city was looked back upon by the various city-states of Mesopotamia as a metropolis of a golden age. In the same way, the writers of the biblical narrative of Genesis created a Garden of Eden as their mythical paradise, most likely modeled on Eridu. The city was abandoned in 600 BCE or 2,622 years ago, most likely due to overuse of the land, and fell into ruin. The city of Eridu features prominently in Sumerian mythology, not only as the first city and home of the gods, but as the locale to which the goddess Inanna traveled in order to achieve the gifts of civilization, which she then bestowed upon humanity from her home city of Uruk. Uruk vies with Eridu among modern scholars for the honor of the oldest city in Mesopotamia, or even the oldest in the world. The ancients certainly believed Eridu to be the first city, and the Sumerian king list gives impossibly long reigns, some between 28,000 to 36,000 years, for their kings, while Sumerian scribes maintained that kingship in the land first came from heaven to be established at Eridu. Scholar Stephen Bertman writes, tradition made it to the earliest city to have a king before the days of the mythical Great Flood. Eridu's archaeology story can be traced back to at least the 6th millennium BCE. If the tradition of its antiquity is true, Eridu may well have been the first city on Earth. If not the first, the city was among the oldest. The ancient Mesopotamians frequently built their cities on top of the ruins of older settlements, as is also true of other cultures. Excavations at Eridu have revealed a sequence of construction dating back to the Ubaid period, 6500 to 3800 BCE, or 8,522 years ago to 5,822 years ago, and continuing on from there to reach its height during the Ur period, Ur III period, 2047 to 1750 BCE, or 4069 to 3772 years ago, under rulers such as Ur-Nammu, who reigned from 2047 to 2030 BCE.
Right,
And,
so Ur would be the city, and Nammu was the deity. So Ur-Nammu, the guy's name, the king, is basically, I am the city of the god. Or the emissary for the city of the god, or whatever. So,
right.
Just
rough. And Shulgi of Ur, 2029 to 1982 BCE, or 4051 to 4004 years ago.
Right, and that was the switch between the direct naming of yourself with the deity to just naming yourself. Or after a statement or a thing. It just shows, like I said, I think in the video, that starts more religious, and then later the religion is sort of taken away, and you end up with just humans. As
Ah,
far as kings, there's the total. In other words, when we think of like separation of church and state or whatever,
yeah,
that concept, there was no such thing when it started. It was actually the ruler was both the state and the church. And
right.
then later it started to be less church and more ruler. But then rulers that then went back to saying, well, I am a deity or a son of a deity or a demigod or whatever.
Related to the god in some way.
Yeah, so it kind of goes back and forth. But my point is that it starts complete. There is no separation. It is 100% religion connected to statism. 100%. Right. No separation of no light at all.
Scholar Gwendolyn Leake points out Eridu was never the seat of a dynasty. Its importance was religious rather than political, as the site of the main sanctuary of Enki. Enki, the god of wisdom, featured prominently in many Mesopotamian texts, and especially in the tale of the Great Flood, as told in the Atrahasis and the Eridu Genesis. Enki and Eridu. Eridu was the home of Enki and the center of his cult. Bertman comments on the ruins of Enki's temple. The god's temple has been found and shows that it was rebuilt over the course of thousands of years. In its earliest phase, dating back to 5500 BCE, or 7,522 years ago, it measured about 12 by 15 feet, was made of mud brick, and featured a simple podium or altar for sacrifices and a niche meant to hold a statue of the god.
Pause for 1 second. So people understand this ancient alien bullshit that somehow the reason there's pyramids is because we got this ancient technology all at one time. That's not what archaeology shows. Archaeology shows an evolution.
Go figure.
Go figure. No. Evolution is true. The Christians are like, evolution is this fantasy from Darwin. I'm like, no, archaeologists would 100% agree.
Right, yeah.
Culture has evolved big time. So to say this nonsense, which I think, like you said, colonialism, or this white racist nationalist thinking that anyone not white couldn't have possibly built shit, all right.
Yeah.
It's just horse crap. And like I said, it's totally an evolution. As it's saying right there, it starts simple and it gets more complex and more complex. It evolves. Go ahead.
To judge by the evidence found in a later niche, fish bones and ashes scattered on the floor around around the altar. The god's favorite meal was freshwater fish. The temple's antiquity makes it the oldest in Mesopotamian architectural and religious history. Enki was associated with freshwater, as was Eridu itself, since it was located in the southern marshes of the Euphrates River. And so it was no surprise that both Enki and Eridu feature in the earliest of the Great Flood stories, from which the later tale of Noah and his ark was developed. The Eridu Genesis, composed 2300 BCE or 4,322 years ago, is the earliest description of the Great Flood, predating the biblical book of Genesis, and is the tale of the good man, I don't know how to pronounce this, Utnapishtim, also known as Atrahasis or Zeusudra, who builds a great boat by the will of the gods and gathers inside the seed of life at Enki's suggestion. Enki was instrumental in the creation of humanity, and when Enlil, king of the gods, grew tired of humanity's noise and decided to destroy them, it was Enki who preserved life on Earth by saving that man that I named before and all the animals in the world. That's funny. God was like, the king of the gods was like, they're so noisy. I'm just gonna destroy them all.
Well, and then what the Bible says is because of sin.
Yeah.
Well,
whatever that means. They were noisy, right. Basically.
Yeah, they bothered him. Their sin bothered them.
Yeah, that's right. I'm tired of their noise. The Eridu Genesis may have been the first written record of a long oral tradition of a time around 2800 BCE, when the Euphrates rose high above her banks and flooded the region. Excavations at Ur by Leonard Woolley in 1922 revealed an 8-foot layer of silt and clay consistent with the sediment of the Euphrates, which seemed to support the claim of a catastrophic flood in the area around 2800 BCE or 4,822 years ago. Notes of the excavation taken by Woolley's assistant, Max Mallowan, however, showed the event was clearly a local but not a global event.
Oh, the Bible's not.
Yeah, go figure, eh? The entire world didn't flood and every civilization was wiped out?
No. But we know the Bible's not history.
Yeah, that's true. A proto-Genesis tale of the garden has been found at Eridu, in which Tagtug the weaver, or gardener, is cursed by Enki for eating the fruit of the forbidden tree in the garden after being told not to. Yeah. Eridu is further associated with the tale of the great sage Adapa, son of Enki, who was initiated into the meaning of life and all understanding by the god of wisdom, but was ultimately tricked by him and denied the one thing he most wanted, knowledge of life without death, to live forever.
Right, and the Bible says they no longer could live forever because they had learned knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh, it's almost like it's an evolution of the other, Sumerian mythology.
Yeah, that's right. They sound really similar.
What would be the chances?
Yeah, go figure, hey. The desire for immortality features prominently in Mesopotamian literature, and Sumerian writing specifically, and is epitomized in the story of Gilgamesh of Uruk. Uruk's link to Eridu is significant in that Eridu's initial importance was later eclipsed by the rise of Uruk.
Sorry.
No worries.
Cat time.
Yep. Kitties take preference over everything.
They're both been messing with me hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what that also shows? I think that you're a good person when animals just absolutely love you and feel safe to do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh, where was I? This transference of power and prestige has been seen by some scholars, the historians Samuel Noah Kramer and Paul Kurwatzek, among them, as the beginnings of urbanization in Mesopotamia, and a significant shift from the rural model of agrarian life to an urban-centered model. The story of Inanna and the god of wisdom, in which the goddess of Uruk takes away the sacred meh, gifts of civilization, from Enki, the god of Eridu, can be seen as an ancient story symbolizing this shift in the paradigm of Sumerian culture. The prosperous commercial center of Uruk superseded the rural Eridu. Okay, so we got the site Eridu Tel Abu Shaharain contains 8 mounds. Mound 1 is the ziggurat sacred area.
And ziggurat, so people understand the concept, that is a step pyramid like the earliest step pyramids of Egypt before they became the pointed, smooth side pyramids or whatever that everyone thinks of when they think of pyramid.
Right.
The oldest ones were actually step pyramids, not very different from the ziggurats, which is a step pyramid temple. Which, as we already learned, evolved out of a flat thing, which is interesting because before the step pyramids, also in Egypt, they had a madrasa or something called something like that. And it's basically just a flat mound, an elongated flat mound. It looks almost like a copy of the first mounds that were the first temples in, like, say, Eridu. Something more simplified, but a rectangular mound. It was built over a grave in a sense. So the two are very, very similar. They start very similar with just a rectangle mound. Then they become step pyramids, and then they evolve past that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's totally. And then
it was plopped down by aliens.
Yeah, the aliens is just so. It's unethical as fuck. It does not match. You don't know jack shit if that's what you think. If you think if you call yourself informed and you think that shit has any reality, I'm telling you, you're not informed.
Yeah, that's right. So Mound 2, it was an early dynastic palace. Mound 3 was a 300 by 150 meter area, 2.5 meters high, 2.2 kilometers southwest of Abu Saharain, is in and there was Isin Larsa pottery was found. Mound 4 was 600 by 300 meters in area, 2.5 kilometers southwest of Abu Sahrain. Kassite pottery was found. Mound 5 was 500 by 300 meters in area, 3 meters high, 1.5 kilometers southeast of Abu Sahrain, and Neo-Babylonian and Achaemenid periods. Mound 6 was 300 by 200 meters in area, 2 meters high, 2.5 kilometers southwest of Abu Sahrain. Mound 7 was 400 by 200 meters in area, 1.5 meters high, and 3 kilometers east of Abu Sahrain. And
Right.
Mound 8 was Usala. And there's references for those in the...
Right. So the point is, it wasn't all the same. It wasn't ancient aliens. It wasn't even one culture. When they say pottery, that means different cultures.
Right.
Or different time frames, at least, of even if it's similar culture.
Yeah.
Where it's evolved. So to think that these slow evolution things and these it's somehow one connected, mythical ancient aliens, it's just
nonsense. Yeah.
Nonsense, man.
Eridu, Tel Abus Shahrain, myth and legend. In some, but not all versions of the Sumerian king list, Eridu is the first of 5 cities where kingship was received before a flood came over the land. The Sumerian king list mentions 2 kings of Eridu, Alulim, who ruled for 28,800 years, and Alalgar, who ruled for 36,000 years. Adapa, a man of Eridu, is depicted as an early cultural hero who is considered to have brought civilization to the city during the time of King Alulim. In Sumerian mythology, Eridu was the home of the Abzu temple of the god Enki, the Sumerian counterpart of the Akkadian god Ea, god of deep waters, wisdom, and magic, and more.
Right. Once again, don't limit it to one thing. All those are mother goddesses and things you've explained religion. Like, if you say shit like that, Damien goes, you don't really know your topic.
You didn't finish it. You didn't add as much as you needed to.
Yeah. You oversimplified to the point of lying.
Yeah.
Or being in error, maybe if not lying. You're not
sure.
Lying could be intentional. So you're at least in error.
Yeah. Like all the Sumerian and Babylonian gods, Enki, or Ea, began as a local god who, according to the later cosmology, came to share the rule of the cosmos with Anu and Enlil. His kingdom was the sweet waters that lay below the earth. The stories of Inanna, goddess of Uruk, describe how she had to go to Eridu in order to receive the gifts of civilization. At first, Enki, the god of Eridu, attempted to retrieve these sources of his power, but later willingly accepted that Uruk now was the center of the land. This seems to be a mythical reference to the transference of power northward. Babylonian texts talk of the foundation of Eridu by the god Marduk as the first city, the holy city, the dwelling of the gods' delight. In the court of Assyria, special physicians trained in the ancient lore of Eridu, far to the south, foretold the course of sickness from signs and portents on the patient's body, and offered the appropriate incantations and magical resources as cures.
Right. It's kind of like today when they think that praying heals people, or that if they look at for signs or symbols of God, like even when they say, well, AIDS is God's punishment or something, it's just similar bullshit.
Yeah.
That's why religion is toxic, because it makes you think that you can look at stuff and just make crap up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's from the gods, therefore you need a magical cure, which in modern times means prayer usually, right?
Yeah, not real medicine.
Not medicine, yeah.
Not scientific derived medicine, I should say. How about that?
Right.
Sometimes like shamans and stuff will call their stuff medicine. Like a medicine wheel or whatever, Native Americans.
Yeah.
Mythology.
Lament for Eridu. The fall of early Mesopotamia cities and empires was typically believed to be the result of falling out of favor with the gods. A genre called city laments developed during the Isin Larsa period, of which the lament for Ur is the most famous. These laments had a number of sections, Kirugu, of which only fragments have been recovered. Unlike Ur or Akkad, we don't have a good idea of how Eridu actually fell, or when other than in the early dynastic period. The Sumerian king list simply says, when Eridug fell and the kingship was taken to Bad Tiberia. Its king stayed outside his city as if it were an alien city. He wept bitter tears. Father Enki stayed outside his city as if it were an alien city. He wept bitter tears. For the sake of his harmed city, he wept bitter tears. Its lady, like a flying bird, left her city. The mother of Ima, holy Damgalununa, left her city. The divine powers of the city of the holiest divine powers were overturned. The divine powers of the rights of the greatest divine powers were altered. In Eridu, everything was reduced to ruin, was wrought with confusion.
Right. In other words, they made a bunch of mythical beliefs. Reality came in war and killed people, and then people fled trying not to be killed, and thus the power was gone magically. So the power was never there magically. It was always humans.
Right.
Thinking they had power because they had position and elite status,
but then they lost their elite status.
They're like, oh, I'm crying, everything's terrible, yeah, my power is gone. Yeah, elite capitalists talk about that shit today.
We've lost the favor of the gods.
Yeah, exactly.
Eridu as Babel or Babel. Eridu was an important center for trade as well as religion, and at its height it was a great melting pot of cultures and diversity, as evidenced in the various forms of artistry found among the ruins. Under the reigns of Ur-Nammu and Shulgi, the city prospered. Bertman writes, the citizens of ancient Eridu were justly proud of another structure besides Enki's temple, a mighty ziggurat edicated about 2100 BCE or 4122 years ago by Ur-Nammu, king of Ur, and his son. Though its eroded platform stands only about 30 feet today, its base of oven-baked brick measures over 150 by 200 feet and once supported a far more imposing structure.
Pause for 1 second. So the reason that they say oven-baked, the other way was sun-baked, which is just dried dirt.
Okay.
By the sun. So that doing it that way, as opposed to firing clay bricks like we do today,
right?
Some difference.
Yeah, for sure.
One is sun-dried dirt, and the other one is more closer to what we would consider a real brick.
Yeah, like you'd actually turn it hard by baking it. Yeah, yeah.
Just to clarify, when they use that term, people are going, "What? Bricks?" In other words,
yeah.
Only elite. This is so people can grasp this. Only elite or religious people or religious buildings or elite buildings used or could afford to have fire bricked, burned brick, whatever.
Yeah.
And meaning that you had resources for trees, transport, and to burn. And a skilled person that knew how to do this.
Yep.
That you could pay or whatever because they charge money, or that you could force a slave, because if a slave had an ability, they just made slaves do it. But not all slaves had abilities, so sometimes you had to pay people. Oh, capitalists hate that.
They don't like having to pay people.
Yeah, and so they're the ones that are constantly wanting to have it to people to pay nothing. That's why I say, if you're going to have this system, then we need to be paying, $20, $30 an hour, at least as a minimum, because everything is so fucked. And they're like, oh my God, how would we make profit? I'm like, you mean steal people's wages to the point that they can't even live?
Yeah.
And you're worried about your opulence being diminished a little bit.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's gross.
Yeah, it's gross. I have no sympathy for them. And I'm losing some profit. You mean that you're offering more equality to your workers would be a better way. So what you want is the abolition of equality. I want the abolition of your fucking wealth taking from the equality.
Yeah, that's right. The great ziggurat of Amar Sin in the center of the city has been associated with the biblical Tower of Babel from the book of Genesis, and the city itself with the biblical city of Babel. This association springs from archaeological discoveries, which support the claim that the ziggurat of Amar Sin more closely resembles the description of the biblical tower than any description of the ziggurat at Babylon.
But what's so funny is how that supposedly in the Bible offended God because they're trying to go to space, right?
Right.
Or to the stars. We've now actually gone to space. The fact that you could know that and then still think the Bible is like accurate is just looking laughable.
Yeah. Seems silly. Further, the Babylonian historian Berosus, 200 BCE or 2,222 years ago, who was a major source for the later Greek historians, seems to be clearly referring to Eridu when he writes of Babel as Babylon. His Babylon is in the southern marshes of the Euphrates and is patronized by the god of wisdom and fresh water. This association strongly suggests that Eridu is the original biblical Babel, as the story of the great ziggurat of Amar Sin was most likely passed down orally before Berosus set the legendary structure down in writing. That's interesting stuff.
Good. I think that this is the section before he gets to get it, and that one's video after we start to get to war and shit.
Right.
But I'm good. I hope this is interesting. I mean, like I said before, I'm making this basically for socialists and anarchists because we need to know the facts, not given to us such biasly that we think, oh, well, there's no support for our ideas.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, there is. Look at the facts.
Yeah. Eridu was abandoned intermittently over the years for reasons which remain unclear, and finally left behind completely sometime around the year 600 BCE or 2,622 years ago. The cause is most likely overuse of the land. Scholar Lewis Mumford, who has studied the phenomenon of the city, both ancient and modern, points out that a city will decline when it is no longer in a symbiotic relationship with its surrounding land. This is no doubt what brought down many, if not most, of the great cities of Mesopotamia that were not destroyed in conquest.
Right, and this is not a new theme too, because up in Turkey, even at 9,000 and 10,000, they put and below, a lot of the cities would put white plaster over everything. Well, to make that from quicklime, you have to burn the lime, which requires you to burn trees, and to burn trees means you got to cut down your forests. So all of a sudden, you end up with no fucking forests anywhere close to you. And you become a fucking desert wasteland because all the animals leave, and all the and floods now happen, or land that was able to hold the water because of the trees. Now the water just comes across your crops and ruins them, and it becomes this or dust now wind can there's no more trees.
Yep.
Now wind can come and blow all your shit away.
It's almost like this concept of humanity's dominance over the land doesn't actually make sense.
It doesn't. I'm just saying we've been fucking up ecologically for like 12,000 years and shit. Ever since we started doing grains on a big thing and burning trees and cutting down trees, for opulence.
Yep.
You mean opulence was never a good thing? No, it wasn't, because the more they did that, because they would white plaster the floor, the walls, the roof, the outside. And all that took quicklime, which I can't remember now, but it's like something like 10 trees for a small, like couple feet or something.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Hundreds of trees, thousands of trees, just to do like a few buildings or whatever, Wow. So you can see where that causes a problem quick. And all of a sudden you got no fucking forest and no fucking animals in those forests. And now when you go hunt too, now you got to go far to hunt.
Right.
So you're probably starving. And like I said, that hurts the crops because now the wind can blow in and shit in ways it never could have before because of the forests. And as we know too, some crops need animals like bees or bugs to pollinate. And if you've cut down every tree that has a flower or something, also trees, sometimes even smaller spread out forests, can have other smaller growth around them or related to them. Yep. If you cut all it down, now all that's dead too. So now it just becomes fucking wasteland. Yeah.
Yep. You just destroy the ecology, and then it makes it like this awful place to be.
Right. Out of greed. Out of just unrestrained fucking greed.
Yeah. Just so you can maintain a certain status.
Right? Kind of like now.
Yeah, a lot like
They're
that.
like, oh, do you want to hurt the economy? I want the economy to realize it is hurting itself. I want the economy to realize it's hurting the workers, and it's hurting society, and it's hurting nature.
Yeah.
So yeah, a fuck economy.
Yeah. Your economy doesn't actually do anything for the well-being of the people or the land.
No, it's actually the
That's
opposite. We're
that's the
freaking
thing.
burning the earth alive and shit, and we're fucking making people go homeless
Yeah.
or live at just destitute, and it's disgusting. So no, I'm not for your economy.
No, exactly. As a popular religious and trade center, Eridu no doubt attracted many people as pilgrims and merchants, not to mention its citizens, and so the drain on the surrounding region's resources could have been quite significant, and finally, simply too much to endure. It is possible, even likely, that the city was periodically abandoned to allow the land to recover. Whatever the reason for its final abandonment, the ruins of Eridu today are largely windswept sand dunes. Very little now remains to remind a visitor of the once mighty city that was founded and loved by the gods. Eridu appears to be one of the earliest settlements in the region, founded 5400 BCE or 7422 years ago, close to the Persian Gulf near the mouth of the Euphrates River. Because of the accumulation of silt at the shoreline over the millennia, the remains of Eridu are now some distance from the Gulf at Abu Shahrain in Iraq. Excavation has shown that the city was founded on a virgin sand dune site with no previous occupation. Piotr Steinkeller has hypothesized that the earliest divinity at Eridu was a goddess, who later emerged as the earth goddess Ninhursag. Nin
Right,
meaning
going
lady.
back to like I said, that it starts in animals and then it becomes women and then it becomes men. So that, and people think I'm fucking crazy, and I'm like, well, if you understand some of the stuff, that's kind of what it looks like. I'm an atheist. Why would I give a fuck?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm not trying to promote my god or anything.
Or even goddesses or animals. Like,
Yeah, that's right. Nin means lady, Her means mountain, and Sag means sacred. With the later growth in Enki as a male divinity, the results of a Hieros Gamos with a male divinity or functionary of the temple. According to Gwendolyn Leake, Eridu was formed at the confluence of three separate ecosystems, supporting three distinct lifestyles that came to an agreement about access to fresh water in a desert environment. The oldest agrarian settlement seems to have been based upon intensive subsistence irrigation agriculture derived from the Sumeria culture to the north, characterized by the building of canals and mud brick buildings. The fisher-hunter cultures of the Arabian littoral were responsible for the extensive middens along the Arabian shoreline, and may have been
midden is shell mound or whatever. So people understand. Well, they call them middens sometimes because they're not mounds that could be spread out, but a lot of those, what they consider shell mounds too, I see all over the world. To me, especially after 6,000, to me, I see are related to more. When they say midden, also it means like trash.
Okay.
But I find that to be colloquialism or like you said, colonialism, bullshit thinking. Because if that's what they are, then why'd they put elites on them? Why'd they build houses on it? Why did they build temples on it? Why did they make them into temples? Make huge mounds and then put a temple on top.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's more close to that. They thought that once again that these shells are white or little are round things like stars in the sky, and then that relates also to totemism and the fact of our clan. Because we are part of the stars. Right. That's like this bullshit. Ancient aliens are like, oh, well, they did mention star people. Yeah, they think that all the world is that. Not that people from fucking stars flew down in spaceships.
Right. So the extensive middens along the Arabian shoreline and may have been the original Sumerians. They seem to have dwelt in reed huts. The third culture that contributed to the building of Eridu were the Semitic-speaking nomadic herds of sheep and goats living in tents in semi-desert areas.
Right. Semitic is something that goes back to about 5,730 or something like that. It's under 6,000 and probably happened maybe in Jordan or Syria or even somewhere near, Babylon. Northern, even Israel. But so somewhere over in that one area.
Okay.
But it's considered to be an Afro-Asiatic or whatever they call that language which comes from North Africa or Northeast Africa, which is very close to Israel.
All three cultures seem implicated in the earliest levels of the city. The urban settlement was centered on a large temple complex built of mud brick within a small depression that allowed water to accumulate. Kate Fielden reports the earliest settlement, 5000 BCE or 7022 years ago, had grown into a substantial city of mud brick and reed houses by 2900 BCE or 4922 years ago, covering 8 to 10 HA or 20 to 25 acres. Malawan writes that by the Ubaid period, it was an unusually large city of an area of approximately 20 to 25 acres with a population of not less than 4,000 souls. Jacobson describes that Eridu was, for all practical purposes, abandoned after the Ubaid period, although it had recovered by early dynastic II, as there was a massive early dynastic II palace. 100 meters in each direction was partially excavated there. Ruth Whitehouse called it a major early dynastic city. By 2050 BCE, or 4069 to 4072 years ago, the city had declined. There is little evidence of occupation after that date. 18 superimposed mud brick temples at the site underlie the unfinished ziggurat of Amar Sin. The ziggurat was dated to Amar Sin based on an inscribed brick. It has since been suggested that the brick was reused by Nur-Adad in 1801 to 1785 BCE, or 3,823 years ago to 3,807 years ago. The finding of extensive deposits of fish bones associated with the earliest levels also shows a continuity of the Abzu cult, associated later with Enki and Ea. Eridu was abandoned for long periods before it was finally deserted and allowed to fall into ruin in the 6th century BC. The encroachment of neighboring sand dunes and the rise of saline water table set early limits to its agricultural base, so in its later Neo-Babylonian development, Eridu was rebuilt as a purely temple site in honor of its earliest history. The urban nucleus of Eridu was Enki's temple, called the House of the Aquifer, which in later history was called House of the Waters. The name refers to Enki's realm. His consort, Ninhursag, had a nearby temple at Ubaid. During the Ur-III period, Ur-Nammu had a ziggurat built over the remains of previous temples. Aside from Enmerkar of Uruk, as mentioned in the Errata epics, several later historian Sumerian kings are said in inscriptions found here to have worked on or renewed the E-Abzu temple, including Elil of Ur-Nammu, Shulgi, and Amar Sin of Ur-III, and Nur-Adad of Larsa. Greater complexity starts before Eridu, founded around 5400 BCE. Clay tokens, a precursor to writing and critical to the development of trade networks in the region, were first used around 7500 BCE. The first village...
7500 is 9,500.
Right.
7, 8, 9. You had 2,000.
The first villages in Mesopotamia were built in the Neolithic period of around 6000 BCE, according to Çatalhöyük, including Çatalhöyük. By 6000 to 5500 BCE, sophisticated water control systems were in effect in the southern Mesopotamia, including man-made canals and storage basins for the dry period. irrigation and levees and dikes to defend from flooding. And reed boats sealed with bitumen were used to support trade along the rivers and Red Sea by 5500 BCE. And by the 6th millennium, mud brick temples or ziggurats were in evidence, in particular at Eridu and at Tel Brak in northern Mesopotamia. They began appearing at least as early as 4400 BCE. The 6th millennium BCE spanned the years 6000 to 5000 BCE, or 8022 years ago to 7022 years ago.
You're getting it, huh?
Yeah. In the Fertile Crescent, a region in the Middle East that included ancient Mesopotamia farming, a plot of land throughout the seasons meant staying in one place all year long. Instead of following seasonal food sources as foragers, this shift to sedentarianism was quite impactful, and it added advanced technology but inequality as well. Staying still allowed for the emergence of wealth like never thought of before, creating many changes in human life. Firstly, storage and wealth accumulation never before possible for people on the move.
Right, because you can imagine wealth basically back then, especially, is not like a credit card. It's actual gold that's heavy as shit, or or even slaves or something. It calls they have to be fed, so you have to have livestock, and you know what I'm saying. So everything was just more complicated. That's why, even like I told you before, it's really the farming community's adaptation of slavery, as opposed to any form of slavery that may have came in hunter-gatherers. Because that would have been very limited, because it's very hard to keep them up.
Yeah, you can't carry a bunch of shit when you're moving around all the time.
Kind of logical, but yeah. So not magic, not some supernatural bullshit, but actually because we stopped and then we could just pile up a bunch of crap, and then then you get what we call wealth.
Yeah. Inhabiting one building meant people could keep agricultural surpluses and other accumulated items, allowing them to build wealth. Before sedentary agriculture, people lived in mobile bands, making wealth accumulation restricted. This had allowed the limited possibility of long-term storage, and so people kept their belongings light. Stored surpluses meant that not everyone in the community had to be dedicated to food production, thus allowed for greater unequal hierarchy and stronger elites. This allowed for the next big change, specialization.
So it definitely wasn't socialism. I watched it, he goes, it's proto-socialism. They all accumulated together, and then they were able to build things. I'm like, the kings built things, the elites built things for themselves. They were not, they gave some stuff back to the people. Yeah, barely.
Right.
Now, when they say, oh, well, we have a safety net in America, so we're socialists. I'm like,
yeah.
Go research the word. Quit.
Yeah, you can't call America proto-socialist because it has a social services, right?
See what I'm saying? Like, dude, no. Or they call it communist. Like,
that's not what that means. That's
God,
barely a safety net.
Go look up words, please. Like, where you say dumb shit and make yourself look like a fucking fool. Just like when they say that Democrats are the far left, I just go, do you know what the left is to begin with?
They don't know what they really just don't know what any of it means.
No, like someone is right or left of the Republicans, that doesn't mean they're a leftist.
No. Yeah. When you're way the fuck over there into fascist land, it's pretty hard.
Right, exactly. If you're like, I'm left of Hitler, so I'm a leftist, you're like, no.
You don't get to call yourself a leftist.
No.
Yeah. Where was I? Stored surpluses meant that not everyone in the community had to be dedicated to food production, thus allowed for greater unequal hierarchy and stronger elites. This allowed for the next big change, specialization and longer trade. Before long-distance trading was commonplace, almost all exchanges took place at the level of an individual group, thus limiting wealth this way as well. People could now build their knowledge and skill in different craft activities, and the small chieftains started to become power-wielding kings. Artistic elements became symbols of identity in the form of stamp seals. The earliest stamp seals in ancient Mesopotamia date to the 6th millennium BCE and often featured a geometric pattern or animals made symbolically, conveyed identity.
Oh, animals. Like when I said it starts in animals. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Stamp seals were impressed upon clay to verify the identity or ascribe ownership. They were often impressed on clay tablet documents. A little like a signature is signed at the bottom of a document today. They were also used to verify the owner of goods. Evidence was found that this process was even used on doors, such as for grain storage. Seals in general were also used extensively in administration and bureaucratic matters.
Let me just clarify something too, so people I know that don't get the relation to totemism. Like, oh, there's a bunch of cross patterns. What is that? Oh yeah, what is the plaid differences of the people of Scotland? Are those clan differences? Oh, they are. Oh, so the different check patterns are like a different clan things. So you get to see, oh yeah, it's not just randomly like checks and fucking, what are you talking about?
It's just what they liked, right? Like it's just like fashion.
Patterns this way and patterns this way. Yeah, like the freaking, or the kilts, the different way they do the plaid is a whole different tribe or whatever. Yeah, you need to think like that. The reason I say this is because sometimes people look at it and they just think, they just like check patterns. Oh yeah, because the people in Scotland just like different fucking plaids for the hell of it, and that's nothing to do with their clan.
Yeah. Well, and it just so happens that everybody in this area liked that one, and everybody in that area liked that one. That's just how it works.
Or similar could be to a different elite themselves, as opposed to like areas. Because once again, elites were a big deal. Yeah. And so later, this clan mentality is that there's one elite, the Clan MacLeod, or whatever. That's one family, and then everyone like a mafia, and everybody's under them. That's a different thing because it's in a sense almost like kingship relatedness, not genetic actual relatedness. But sometimes that can be that too. But it's a totemistic mentality is what I'm trying to explain. That somehow representative things relate to a type of people. So that's all I wanted to say is that we think, it's just artistic. No, I don't. Yeah, that's like so is the plaids, the different plaids.
Right.
It's just artistic.
Yeah, they're artistic. Yeah, but they also have a material meaning.
And a meaning beyond just the I like plaid.
Yeah. Where am I? Oh yeah, bureaucratic matters, empowering the emergence of statism. Seals first appeared in sedentary societies because they are concerned with the control of resources.
Yeah, the elites are concerned with the control of resources.
Yeah.
Because this bullshit of calling that socialism. If it's socialism, why is there a worry about controlling it to begin with? Aren't we supposed to distribute to everyone to their need? Yeah. What is the worry of controlling it unless somebody's taking more than their fair share, like capitalism?
Yeah, that's right.
It's the wealth accumulation, not the equal or ethical distribution of wealth, because then who would be worried about it? And they don't say because they want equal wealth distribution. It doesn't say that shit at all. It's accumulation of wealth. And then they're worried about it, keeping that accumulated wealth to themselves or to what they want.
Proto-capitalism.
Yeah. Arcane capitalism.
Arcane capitalism, yeah. Neolithic culture and technology had spread from the Near East and into Eastern Europe by 6000 BCE or 8022 years ago. Its development in the Far East grew apace, and there is increasing evidence throughout the millennium of its presence in the prehistoric Egypt and the Far East. In much of the world, however, including North and Western Europe, people still lived in scattered Paleolithic hunter-gatherer communities. The world population is believed to have increased sharply, possibly quadrupling, as a result of the Neolithic Revolution. It has been estimated that there were perhaps 40 million people worldwide at the end of this millennium, growing to 100 million by the Middle Bronze Age, 1600 BCE, or 3,622 years ago.
Big jump.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that's when they try to go, oh, look, it produced greater society. I'm like, no. Because if at the same time it produced a mass inequality and war and death.
Right. More people doesn't automatically mean
equal equality. Like, see, socialism, everybody got better. I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
Well, there's more homeless, but we still consider those to be people. So, hey, see, everything is great. We have billions now, so we have no inequality at all. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Billionaires means no equality. Right. Inequality. The use of pottery found near Tbilisi is evident that grapes were being used for winemaking 5,980 BC or 8,002 years ago. It has been estimated that humans first settled in Malta at 5,900 BCE, arriving across the Mediterranean from both Europe and North Africa.
So they had boats.
Right. Across the Mediterranean. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So when they have a problem understanding how I say that after the submerged landmass of Siberia and Alaska, how people were taking boats across, and they're like, I don't know about that. I'm like, you think that ancient people didn't have fucking boats?
Of course they did. Yeah. Evidence of cheese making in Poland is dated at around 5,500 BCE or 7,522 years ago. The jungle fowl is domesticated around 5,500 BCE in Southeast Asia, and the Zabagu culture in China began around 5,400 BCE or 7,422 years ago. It was in the northeastern part of the country, primarily in the Luan River Valley in Inner Mongolia and northern Hebei. 4 identified cultures starting around 5,300 BCE or 7,322 years ago were the Dnieper, Donets, and the Narva in the eastern Baltic, and the Ertebole in Denmark and northern Germany, and the Swifterband in the Low Countries. They were linked by a common pottery style that has spread westward from Asia and is sometimes called ceramic Mesolithic, distinguishable by a point or knob base and flared rims.
Right. Once again, it just shows that massive distances were related, which is what I keep saying, that religion is very, very more connected to culture and long, or large areas than people realize. Like, well, how can you have something in Denmark relate to something in Russia? That's just crazy. Actually, if you understand history and archaeology and the facts, that's not crazy at all.
Right. People traveled.
Yeah. Shocker. And it didn't wait till cars or the wheel.
That's right. They didn't have to wait till the plane was invented.
No. I agree that definitely constrained some of the stuff, but it certainly didn't make it not connected.
Right. Yeah. Things take longer.
Yeah. And also, here's the other thing. They evolve as they get there.
Yeah.
So that's why an idea could be totally related, like the same deity, but by the time it gets from, Mesopotamia to Germany, it sounds like a totally different deity.
Right.
Well, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't.
Fair. We got 6th millennium BCE environmental changes. The early Holocene sea level rise, which began 10,000 BCE or 12,022 years ago, tailed off during the 6th millennium. Global water levels had risen by about 60 meters or 197 feet due to the deglaciation of ice masses since the end of the last ice age. Accelerated rises in sea level rise, called meltwater pulses, occurred 3 times during the EHSLR. The last one, meltwater pulse 1C, which peaked at 6,000 BCE or 8,022 years ago, produced a rise of 6.5 meters in only 140 years. It is believed that the cause was a major ice sheet collapse in Antarctica. Approximately 8,000 years ago, or 6,000 BCE, A massive volcanic landslide off Mount Etna in Sicily caused a mega tsunami that devastated the eastern Mediterranean coastline on the continents of Asia, Africa, and Europe. In South America, a large eruption occurred at Cueros de Purula in 5870 BC, or 7,892 years ago, forming a buoyant cloud and depositing the Seropenilla ash in the Calchaquí valleys. A cataclysmic volcanic eruption occurred in 5700 BCE, or 7,022 years ago, in Oregon, when 12,000 foot or 3,700 meter high Mount Mazama created Crater Lake as the resulting caldera filled with water. Another major eruption occurred in 5550 BCE, or 7,572 years ago, on Mount Takahi in Antarctica, possibly creating an ozone hole in the region. The carbon-14...
The whole point of, but it's good you keep reading, but the whole point of I'm trying to show is that a lot of catastrophe happened and it affected the environment. When it affected the environment, you started to have a massive migration of people.
Right.
Because now areas that were, somewhat cold got fucking freezing, almost unlivable. And some areas that were fertile now become dry deserts or wastelands, or or flood become, so this really made people move around a lot. That also spread religion around, because then these people that are now going and interacting with other people.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. The carbon-14 content in tree rings created in 5480 BCE, or 7,502 years ago, indicates an abnormal level of solar activity. And that's the end of what we've got here.
Yeah.
So
what do you think after hearing all this stuff? Or have you got any thoughts or any things that you like the best? Or
where was it that we talked about? I thought it was quite interesting. A few pages ago.
About Babylon?
Yeah, like the
related to
the Babel. Yeah, I think that's really cool to know, like that this is like legitimately a thing that happened in this town, and like that people are assigned this Christian, I guess, identity to it.
Yeah, right. So they go, or like when they say, see, there's historical stuff. I'm like, if you think that that's is an honest portrayal in the Bible,
right?
Shit, you're just not ethical.
You're just not right.
But I do think it's good to understand that there is this stuff, because it brings it back, like I said, not ancient aliens, but humans, things, and human sources. Just like, why did they decide en masse do that? Well, I don't know. The fucking Earth was having all kinds of problems.
Right.
It's not a guess. Like, how come after 7,000 all these clans are fighting? Wow. Did you hear about all the environment that was happening, fucking up the whole shit?
Yeah, and of course, there seems to be a lot going on.
Yeah, and if you think mountains are magical and they're all blowing their tops, you think gods are pissed off.
Yeah.
And if you see, you believe clouds are to do with the gods, all of a sudden they're making their own clouds in the sky, and then it's falling down and like killing crops, or
or the ocean rises up and attacks you.
Right. Or like they said, solar flares, or if you see the sun doing things that never has ever done, not even recorded in your history, for your people or whatever. And you can see where they would think that things. And so I'm just saying that there's a lot of context of why things were happening. Because why 7,000 years ago did people from Iran and from Europe start going into the Middle East?
Yep. I'm pretty sure if I lived anywhere near where the ocean attacked my village, I would definitely be moving if I survived that.
Right. You would write about flood myths.
Yeah, that's right. The ocean is like suddenly like way higher. No.
Right. So
I'm not sticking around.
Yeah, I'm just making a comment that it's once you understand that, I think to me personally, it helps demystify religion. It takes it out of the realm of this magical bullshit and just go, people misunderstood nature.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, for sure.
Right on. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed it too. And the other stuff gets better because to me, because it gets into more violence and stuff. Not that I like violence, but I like showing how fucked up this stuff is.
Yeah.
And this was more giving you the background to understand why that stuff happened. And it's this wealth accumulation. It starts in a small scale, and then it just becomes out fucking outrageous. Oh yeah, you mean like what they call unchecked capitalism? That's always the problem.
Yeah, that's always the problem.
You mean wealth? You just mean that the accumulation of wealth has no bounds, and that's always a bad thing.
You mean people with power abuse power, and
yeah.
No.
So I think that it is important, and so the reason why it's good to learn this kind of history is because I think, like I said, it gives a foundation of understanding, and it debunks this. It's always been this way bullshit.
Right?
No, the fuck it is not.
Yeah, because you can literally show where it changed.
literally show.
Yeah.
And they say, well, maybe it's aliens you're just understanding. No, you need to do more research, because that is fucking wrong. There is no point where everyone got everything. Well, it says they got things. Yeah, and they had lived in reed huts.
Right. While those guys lived in baked stone houses.
Yeah. Couldn't have been any problem with the unequal distribution of labor.
Yeah, that's right.
And some people sitting on their ass and doing nothing and being elite while everyone else is slaving for them. That's not socialism. What the fuck are you talking about?
Nope.
You go read the word.
Yeah.
So that's what I think too is important, because people think that the only way you can defend socialism is somehow defend these communist countries that call themselves socialists.
Right, and obviously we both think that's incorrect.
Totally think that's incorrect. They go, how do you defend against Russia and China? I go, I don't.
They sucked. Yeah.
They go, well, they call themselves socialists. And I'm like, well, actually, you need to understand that they're the transition period that's supposedly to lead to communism or socialism, not a direct glorification that they are the epitome of socialism.
Right.
In a sense, communism is the anti-statism, anti-hierarchical. Well, you can't have the Communist Party and be hierarchical and be accruing wealth for yourself. Like I told you before, there's billionaires in China at almost the level they are in America. Not as many, but at highest as opposed to anyone else. And then Russia, I think, is high also.
Economic inequality still exists.
Yeah, if you read communism, that should not be happening.
Yeah.
So, and they would, like I said, it's a transition, supposedly. That's what the reformer guy.
Yeah.
They believe that that's not the actual, it's like Leninism or whatever. That's not the actual communism. That's supposedly the transition that will lead us to future communism. So when you call that, supposedly, because it didn't. But in fact, it looks like it's pretty good at making dictators.
Yep. Yeah, that's like I'm reading a book right now called Libertarian Socialism, and it's about like the divide between Marxism and anarchism and these kind of differences. And that's one of the sticking points, is like this idea of like where Leninists, they think that you have to gain power and hold the state in and use it to transition to communism, where anarchists are like, well, that doesn't fucking work.
Well, so, it hasn't worked. And I would also say it starts with, to me, that we're supporting inequality as the way to get equality. I think that is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, which is your means and ends discussion, right? Because you can't.
Let's just say that we agreed, which I don't. Well, let's just say we agreed with their position, because I said I'm pretty open. I'm an anarchist. I'm open if it sounds reasonable. But the problem is you glorify that communist state.
Right.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And how can you, as a real communist, glorify that state? I hear fuckers constantly, oh, look at Cuba or look at China. It's feeding people. Mm-hmm. And it's also mass inequality. The fact that you won't talk about both is a fucking problem.
Yeah, you do have, and I am in favor of acknowledging the things they're doing correctly.
I totally agree.
But we have to acknowledge what they're doing wrong as well.
Well, otherwise that comes back to the similar classist bullshit.
Yeah.
Which is why I said I don't like that, because if you were like you said, if we believe their rhetoric, this is only a stepping stone, then why are you worshiping it?
Yeah, that's right.
If is not the stepping stone anarchism? the total abolition of the state.
Yeah.
That's real communism. To call this other shit real communism when it actually has a state, you mean the stepping stone, not the glorification. We should worship this or call that real communism when it's absolutely not.
Yeah.
To me. So,
Yeah,
and when you bring that up, they get angry. Why? Why would you get angry? Am I not saying what real communism? Oh, how can you call the Communist Party not real communists? They can call themselves freaking gods. That doesn't make it right or true.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be a mistake to believe that like they've associated a state, the existence of a state, with their ideal of communism, when really they've just adopted like this statism as their ideology.
Well, yes, and like I said, if we believe what the rhetoric says, which I seems like they don't,
Right.
they themselves should not be worshiping that transitional period state.
Yeah.
Either.
No.
Right?
Yeah. They should
That's
always
like
be working towards getting rid of it.
right. So why would you have a problem with the anarchists? We want real communism.
Yeah, that's right.
So what would be the problem? I want no statism. I want no hierarchical. I'm all for that shit.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you say that somehow we're at war, why? Isn't that so? You're saying it has a transition period to get to what I want, but then when I say what I want, you say I'm against what you do to get there, which is the goal is to what the interim period or to get there.
Right. Yeah. Do you want communism or do you want a transitional state?
It sounds like you worship and want this transitional one so much that you'll kill communists that are anarchists because those ones say don't be a transition. Yeah. They say just we need the end result, but see,
we need to move past this. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't to me it doesn't logically make sense. I know that they feel like when they say, well, it has to be that way. Even if I accepted that, shouldn't your worship not be of the transition state, but the end result, which is supposedly what the transition is fucking for? Yep.
Yep. Even if you accept 80%, all of the things they say, they're still inconsistent.
That's what I'm saying. Even if I accept 100% of what they say.
Yeah.
Is this not a transitional state or is this the goal?
Yeah.
And since the goal of communism is not this, why are you worshiping it? Why are you feeling anyone who wants the goal as a bad person?
Yeah.
I don't understand how that can be logically consistent in your mind. And then they always go, oh, well, America's worse. Yeah, I fucking talk about bad shit about America all the time. But the fact that you won't mention this or won't be consistent to me with your belief. If communism is the goal is actually this, then the transitional state, even if you feel it has to, even if I agreed it does have to, that is not the goal. Why are you worshiping not the goal? Wouldn't you agree the transitional state is shit and the goal is better than shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I know you're an anarchist and you're going.
We're on the same page.
But see, you know what's, but like I told you before, the interesting thing is you're on a page though from reading about it.
Yeah.
I'm just natural.
Yeah.
I have read very little past Wikipedia, and even then, I don't even read all of that because I get bored. I don't like reading. I'm a street kid. People understand that I am not a person who likes this shitload of reading. What I like as a rationalist is to fucking be having the position of epistemic certainty, which is built on fucking facts. So I have to read some stuff because I'm not trying to push previous conceptions of anarchism. I'm not saying that you do anything wrong, but I'm saying I'm not trying to push that. I'm saying I look at the world myself, I'm my own anarchist, and I go, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
And then people were like, that's anarchism, not wanting the hierarchy and not believing everyone should be treated equal and get distribution. So I sound almost like a communist too. But it's not because I read communist stuff. It's not because I'm trying to adhere to some communist ideal. I just go, this should be a better way to make the world. And then especially to me, I became more leftist and more, sort of communist or whatever leaning and anarchist totally is reading history and going, holy fuck, this is what fucked the world up.
Yeah.
And they call this shit the beginning of civilization. Like, oh, you mean the beginning of shit getting fucked.
Yeah.
So But I also want to say that I'm not anti-society. Some people get this mistaken. Even though I'm a green anarchist and I believe that we should be doing everything to save the world, because
Right.
humans are not the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that I'm not in agreement with people who want to blow up technology and shit.
No, yeah. I think we're at a point where we could actually, if we did things, if we changed the way we ran society,
yes,
we could still have lots of the technology that we have, and we could just use it in a better way. But
totally, because it's like saying, even I could say nuclear power. Nuclear power as a power plant's fine. Nuclear power as a fucking bomb is terrible.
Yeah.
So wind power is great, but if you're freaking throwing people's heads into it, I'm disagreeing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They go, well, birds hit it. Why don't we make screens around them?
I'm sure we could do something. Yeah.
Right? Couldn't we put like a fan? We have fans. Children doesn't stick their hand in it. We can't do that for birds.
Yeah.
So they go, oh yeah, eliminate wind power. I'm like, why don't we just put big screens around them? Well, it would cost more money.
The funny thing is that usually the people who are like they don't like wind power because of the dead birds, literally don't care about birds in any other context.
Well, that has to do with, right, and that's why I try to tell people ethics are universal in the sense they flip a coin. If you can't, in a sense, do this and don't have a good justification, why not?
Yeah.
Then it's probably not really ethics. You're just making up your own moral beliefs. And let me say real quick. So, to me, values are what produces everything. So you change your values, change your morality immediately. Like I used to value the Bible. Once I became an atheist, I didn't value the Bible. All of a sudden, my whole morality changed.
Right.
But so values, in a sense, give meaning to all these other things. Okay. But then on top of that becomes morality to me in general, which is both morals and ethics to me.
Right.
Morals is your own personal way of doing things, of behavior.
Right.
Your moral could be that, as you didn't do, you won't call me fat. When I asked you to do it, even though I wanted to demonstrate how I would handle that, your morality said, no, you can't do that. That's not an ethical thing. I was asking you to do it. I wanted to do role play.
Right.
People, so people could see how I handled it, so they can think when their situation how to handle being called names.
Right.
But also my morality says I shouldn't press my abilities on others. So when you said that violated your morality, I was okay with that. Right?
Yeah.
So that's morality. That's not, neither of us were doing ethics.
Right. Because ethics are bigger. They're broader, right?
Right. So they have to do with our social interaction with people, and it could relate to our morality, could also relate to ethics. Like you don't want to call people names because you think it's ethically wrong to hurt people, but that wasn't the context it would have been in.
Right.
So it wasn't really ethics.
No,
and then knowing that it's not really ethics, but understanding that you're uncomfortable and me caring, not that I'm ethically hurting you, but that as an anarchist, I do have the ability to push myself on people. I realize I don't want to do it, not because I can't, because I think that it's just morally for me, not the way I should be behaving. That's why even though I could told you I could attack Democrats really freaking hard or do different things, or even Republicans, and just be brutal and say things because I'm intelligent and informed. I don't, because being brutalizing people to me is not the way I want to behave.
Yeah. No.
But that's not really unethical. It could get unethical. But for me, it starts actually in a moral thing, just like you. There's just some things, even though I could do it, I just don't.
Yeah.
So that's what you understand it because you wouldn't say it. Even the context is not there. So it's not crazy. It's me not doing it. Feel like, why don't you do that if you think that way? Because I don't want to behave like that.
Yeah, because that's not something that I want to do as a person. That doesn't work for me.
Right,
yeah.
But that's not really, in a sense, ethics. Ethics is how I behave. Now, I shouldn't rape or kill. That's more about ethics. You can have morals that also coincide with that.
Yep.
But ethics is how you interact. That's like there's business ethics, not business morals.
Right.
People might have morals, but the morals can be all over the place and personal.
Yeah.
Just like sometimes, like there's people that will say, I'm against abortion, but ethically, I think everyone has a right. So I would vote for people's right to abortion, even though I personally don't like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is showing the difference between morals and ethics.
Yeah.
Ethically, you don't take away people's rights. I don't give a shit what you personally like.
I'm
All
afraid
right.
I gotta go.
Hey, right on. Just wanted to, clarify all that stuff.
Yep,
So
for sure.
right on.
Cool.
Go ahead and tell us about your stuff.
Yeah. Sounds like we're gonna be taking a brief break from the Red Reviews.
Okay.
Justin has some stuff to deal with in his personal life, so I've got a couple interviews in the can for the Mind of a Skeptical Leftist, and then I'll have to start recording some more. But you can check that out, our stuff on the Mind of a Skeptical Leftist on YouTube or podcast apps, and it's I'm skeptical at Skeptical Lefty on Twitter, and that's about it.
Right on. Well, I appreciate everyone checking it out, and thank you for giving us your time also.
You bet.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudohistory, pseudomorality, things that are found in religion.